Okay, turn 11 here after the planning phase. Well, a couple of people had explorers. Spain, England, France, they all have explorers available. France chose not to use theirs. They just want to funnel more forces into here. England said, hey, France, let's attack Spain together. I'll make my landings in the Caribbean and wipe him out there, and that'll take some of his base away, and that'll free you up for the attack. Now, France is saying, nah, that doesn't make sense. Essentially, what you're going to do is get me involved in a permanent land war with Spain for the rest of the game, and probably end up being able to stab me later. Right now, I've got money to make out of here. Spain's got their own, maybe better situation, but it's not the time for me right now. England said fine and decided to go off, and they're going to go all out against the Portuguese at this point. Basically, England does not have as strong a position on the board as countries like Spain and France do. Yes, they have a lot of money, and that's a decent amount of victory points. And yes, that could be turned into a war machine against one or the other of Spain and France. But it could also be used in a much smaller dose to finish off the Portuguese and grab the stuff that they've already neutralized. So, it seems to me, grab what you can and try to get yourself into, a stronger position. Right now, England feels like they're kind of in third place. In terms of exploration, France is way ahead in this. Only Portugal has anywhere near what they do, with 215 versus, 190, 205, 240 for France. But France has the good physical location. Spain does not have the exploration stuff. Maybe they can come to some agreement with England. The division of the Caribbean, though, is almost a thorn in any agreement between the two. If either one can gain the Caribbean, that would fix things a little bit. But, of course, that might cause a war. Poor Portugal landed in the same space, or is going to land in the same space England is, with plans to upgrade. They spent all their money to put one more soldier and some colonists into there. Basically, they wanted to put it here, but they can't. And in fact, this is kind of questionable. They'll just take the money from that while they can, but see what they can do otherwise. Maybe, and this is maybe me fudging the rules a little bit here, but maybe they can take Cusco. Interestingly enough, and maybe there's something there, right? You don't know. And the gold mines here are exceedingly difficult with a 3 attrition value plus 2 for the rough. That becomes very hard to mine. But this one is Potosi. And the Spanish got the event that increases Potosi's output from 25 to 50 if you're currently working it. Really unlikely that anybody ever gets this. And there's very little reason to set up Potosi because it's just such an unpleasant place to be to funnel your colonists into constantly. Anyway, let's see what happens between the English and the Portuguese, because they both have an extra bound for hemispheric movement here in order to land, basically. And the English may chase down the Portuguese fleet because they've essentially declared permanent war on Portugal, I would say, at this point. There's very little chance Portugal's going to forgive the English for this, and you can expect these troops are going to come down, finish them off, clear out Brazil, and that's just part of it is, hey, let's just wipe out the weak guy, take over his position. Well, the problem is England has the initiative here. They have a little bit of a difficulty. Now, they have 8 extra bounds, so what they're going to do is they're going to spend 4 of them to drop off their colonists, or three movement points from that extra bound. The rest they're going to attack the Portuguese with. They don't want to lose colonists or ships filled with colonists. When I calculated things up, the English have 8, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 60 strength points, because you count the land troops, against 24 plus 4, 28. That's going to be just a 2-to-1 attack. That's one of the reasons they want to clear out of there. And if they roll high, they do quite well. If they roll a 1, they're going to take well, or a 2. They're going to take some significant losses, but they have a couple of the smaller ships on hand, So it's not so bad for them, and they will do losses to what Portugal can land by doing this. So they get a 3 on the 2-to-1 table. They lose 1 ship, the defender loses 2. There's no prize there. But that's another bonus for having kind of crappy little ships with you. That's going to cut into what the Portuguese can carry. They'll drop themselves down to this. Now they must retreat because they have less warships than the British do, and they can't be attacked again. They may have to pay some movement points for that retreat. I don't remember. I'll look that up. It's not really a big deal either way. But now the English just spent 3 to land. Now they don't have enough to get back. They weren't counting on that reinforcement, so what they're going to do is they're going to leave themselves with not enough bounds to return with. If they do return, they'll go back with the full force, but they need to land those troops now. They needed that army on board in order to make the attack. I miscalculated in my head. I forgot it takes 3 movement points to attack as well. So it was 3 points to land, 3 points to attack, 3 points to land again. That's 9. That cuts their bounds down. But here's the thing. Can they get somewhere closer? Can they get to a 2? There aren't... the Caribbean's also 3 bounds away. The closest 2 is way up here. So they only have like 7 movement points left. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's not going to get them anywhere nearby. So that's kind of a shame. They can keep their fleet down here in the New World, or they could take their risks, which is probably the better move, at the 9 or more table for the return. They might lose all their ships. Cabot, it doesn't matter. He's dying this turn anyway. So it's not that big a deal. And they've driven the Spanish, or the Portuguese back. The Portuguese still keep their troops there, but it does weaken what they've got, and it does reduce the amount of ships that they have, so that if they want to reinforce, they're going to have less and less as they, you know, they're weak enough as it is. And the English are really kind of cutting into what little meat there might be left on Portugal. Forgot to mention something about the Spaniards. They're sending their explorer ashore to cross over here. They're starting to build up ships to handle that big mine in California. They're going to start shipping colonists up there and trying to do what they can in order to get there. Now, they can't ship colonists there without an explorer, which is why they have to transfer him. He's good for next turn. That's going to be his job. I was mistaken. The Portuguese do not have to retreat. In fact, they cannot. They're still there. The English can land because there's no Portuguese port there. They're not doing a naval invasion. But they don't get driven off, which is important for naval invasion. If there's enemy ships there, you actually have to eliminate them all. And you only get 1 round of combat to do so. So you have to have overwhelming force to conduct a naval invasion in a 5-year turn. It feels a little weird to me, but it's okay, because naval invasions are pretty damn rare. They generally happen when you just don't have an explorer. Otherwise, you would land next door and hit them, usually. And as we push into turn 12, here's what happened. The English did manage to wipe out all the Portuguese in Brazil, which was the one thing that was kind of keeping their army alive at all. So now they're down to just colonists. They got pushed aside here, or ran away here as well. There's very little for them to do. They spent every buck they made off of these guys, which is all they had left, on staying, keeping them in the game. They had to get rid of their boat. They had to get rid of the army unit that was there. Conceivably, they could have kept the boat alive for $2. That would have made sense. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna keep the army, which cost them 1, and the boat, which cost them 2. That's $3 alive, rather than the 3. And this cost them 4, 7, 8, 9. They're gonna keep $1. because their situation just looked like it was totally hopeless the way it was. Now, this is not terribly much better, right? Oh, they gotta have $2 for the boat, too. This is not terribly much better because they're not sitting on the port. So they got to go after the English. I'm going to actually run them this way. They have to kind of stay in Panama, or else there would have been a danger of a... actually, they'd be here to help block that. So they had an extra land unit, an extra colonist. They have to remain in Panama because there's no natives in Panama and there's natives everywhere else around that they could get to. But the reason they need this is they need a port. They need the ability to ship more troops in there because otherwise they're basically finished. Unless somebody sells them, rents them, whatever, an explorer, they will not be back on the board. Well, conceivably they could raise up enough money to do a naval invasion somewhere. And certainly they could do it here. That wouldn't be too difficult. But most places it would get repulsed pretty easily, right? Because the strength would just be, unless there's just a one-strength thing. And if there is a one-strength place, well, there's probably enemy troops nearby. This is one of the few places they could land safely and actually hold it for any length of time. So, this is what they're going to go for. Other item of note, the French ended up finally wiping out the natives in the East Coast. They had been leaving them alone. They funneled their $85 back into France. We got a totals for the cash right now, and the French are actually catching up to the English. We're at 340 to 370. That's the closest they've come so far. The Spanish are actually growing as well, up at 210. They're kind of standing even still. Remember, they're not hauling gold but in any quantity, although they did open up this gold mine here. The gold mine's here. They moved the gold off of it, and they moved the gold down here, the $100. They abandoned this because, well, they want to be in position so that the fleet can come up, pick that up. They'll go and start mining it later, but they got to get that colony, the port set up so that they can start shipping their goods, down into Mexico and start the chain. They do not have a huge fleet here in Spain. They may need to invest in the galleon fleet again. $100 a turn. They're not going to be able to move that for a while. They've only got one of these ships. That's 25. Next turn they'll have two, so they'll be able to haul $50 down. It's going to be a slow process to get up to speed, and they may well need a galleon fleet to help them. All right. Wow, that was a lot of words on this turn. We're going into turn 12. I've already cleaned up the leaders, and we'll start that. All right, two events of interest in turn 12 here, and we're getting very close to where resources triple, which means times 6 in the rich areas. Anyway, the two special events. One is poor Portugal. They got a plague in the colonies. They lost one more of their colonists. They're down to almost nothing. They also didn't get a lot of money, only $11 left in cash. That's probably not enough to ship anything anywhere. They may just let this die and see if they can put together an invasion force. I don't know. It is pretty hopeless for them at this point. If there was a Portuguese player and it was getting as late as it probably is in the game and seeing, wow, we're only about halfway through. Geez, do I really want to be here 5 more hours? Because the game does get longer at this point. They would probably walk away. They would probably be, not wanting to finish the game at all. Just, hey, just leave my stuff on the board and kill it. That would be a fair result. It can probably support itself. The other one is the Spanish. They got a civil war. That means they have to transport, what, a half, I think? I read it and then immediately forgot. Crappies. No, a quarter of their... First of all, they can't buy any new soldiers. And secondly, they must transport a quarter of their current soldiers on the board back to Europe. They can die in transit, but they have to get out of there. That's kind of a painful solution because they may have to buy a new fleet in order to do that. And I don't know, that kind of sucks. All right. We'll see what we can get there. May mean building more ships in other places and gathering them together in order to launch an expedition back. This is also the opening. Hey, if France wants to make their attack, if England wants to make their attack, this is maybe the time to do it. England's got a kind of neat situation. They pulled a lot of money this turn, you can see, because they have very few colonists. That's not always the case, but it almost always is. France got a pile of colonists, and it's kind of a funny thing at this point in the game. Early in the game, you want money. You want the low die rolls that produce a lot of money. Later in the game, you kind of want those colonists, because they are going to produce you more money than you'll just get off the tax table. Interesting little feel. It's not like you have any control over those die rolls, though. All right, let's go to planning. If Portugal only had an explorer, they could take these guys, sail them here to the Caribbean, and be on a safe little island. But they don't. Will Spain rent them an explorer? That's a good question. Spain doesn't terribly want another power there. They don't terribly want the money. And they don't particularly want to take away the threat, whatever that may represent, of this to the English. But by the Portuguese having a port, it may enable them to be able to move forward. Spain's not going to use this explorer. They're planning on shipping to here and then to the south and pulling their army back. So it might be an interesting idea. Let's see. What would the Portuguese need? 3 to get them 3 bounds to get them here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17 movement. That's 3 more bounds. They can't afford that. They could afford placement here at 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's see. If they move here for 4, or 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. That would be 6 bounds. They still don't have the money. Basically, the real question here is, Spain would have to give them a buck and save them this. Spain's only willing to do this on a 1, but it is a possible deal in the sense that, hey, Portugal, look, I'll let you be there. Eventually you'll clear out. But I want you to remember this, and maybe we'll work together against England if need be. And the answer is yes. So Spain's going to give a buck to the Portuguese as well as lend them the Explorer so that they can do that operation. Well, that was unwise. The English moved in and attacked. Now they're taking a risk because they don't have enough bounds to get back home. Of course, they could continue their hemispheric movement to a safe location if they wished, but they don't terribly wish to. They're going to take the risk on the homeward voyage. Let's see, they spent 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I'll sail to here just in case I do wish to stay in port. I got to make an attrition check. I landed the additional people over in Panama. Why? Well, because I did want those troops there. I want to be able to launch an attack up in Spain. But I killed the Portuguese ship as well as the Spanish explorer. And now Spain has lost something real there. And probably kind of angered the English a little bit more. All right, turn 12 comes to an end. What happened? Well, look, obviously the Portuguese are gone. Spaniards managed to ship their stuff out. They've got some gold sitting here. That's kind of at risk. The English have made it pretty clear that they're on this warpath. France has been approached by them a couple of times, including this turn. They're of the feeling that if they don't go to war with Spain, England may attack them. So they've colluded with Spain and said, look, let's just wipe this guy out. He's bloody. And one of the two of us, the two of us will be left and we'll fight it out between us. But we can't trust him. He is the wild card. We're both more established, both in good shape. The French have a lot of cash on hand right now, but the Spaniards have this mine going and they're trickling the money down. Which way is it going to go? It's hard to tell. The French look very compact and maybe too tightly placed, but they have a lot of wealth in this area. This is very productive. So they're also maybe less reachable by the English. The English would have to launch the attack into North America where both their enemies are, whereas if they attack the Spaniards directly, which may be the case anyway, they can hit in the Caribbean, they can march up here. So France and Spain have colluded to the point where they are going to both attack. That's where we're going with this next turn. And Portugal, if they can come in, well, they've got a real bone to pick with the English too. And they're probably likely to try to make their gains at the English expense if they can ever get a chance to do so. That's a rough thing. Whoever they get gains, whoever help, basically they're not going to be able to do anything without help of an explorer probably, or by a port invasion. They can just collect their income though. They don't have anything that they need to hold on to. All right, let's put this one up.